In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Father God, thank you for being the kind of God who hears and answers prayers, for being who you are and how you are. Please forgive us for our sins, either those we know or those we don't know we commit. God, please bless me through this message. Let it be your words and your truth as the God of love, life, joy, and peace. Please, God, keep the evil one, the hater, the liar, the thief, and the destroyer away from this message. Amen. God bless Mark Anthony DiBello. Today is November 28th, 2025. This is a life update message I neglected to give last month, but I must give today near the end of the month because while it's Black Friday for the people of the world, or I guess at least the United States of America, it's black for me because it's a day of sadness and sorrow and suffering, because today is the birth date of my daddy. And while it's a positive that he gave birth to me along with my beautiful mom, my dad should be alive today and at age 93, but he's not. And this, what I've entitled a life update, again, I'm going to keep to 1 hour. I think I could be more mellow. It's been the end of, I think, maybe just maybe a 14 or 16-hour day. It's nearing its end, and I try to work, as you might have heard me said before, 6 days a week. As soon as God wakes me up in the morning to whenever I just feel I get tired at night, or maybe sometimes admittedly satanically attacked, and I just run out of energy, and some of the opposites of love, life, joy, and peace, and lifelessness. But having said that, again, going to just keep this message to an hour. Last message had a lot of inserts, like photographs and pictures and such. I apologize, I didn't review it before I posted it. I'm grateful for whomever might be watching or listening, although I'm certain most people, or at least 90%, are at enmity with me, or enemies of God's and mine. But if I do add any inserts, they'll be up. You'll see them up on the screen. Like I can, edit and put them over here where this blank space is on the wall. Why this is the reason I shoot here this way. And having said that, just for whatever, I'm going to note this. You see this jersey with these rainbow bars? My last name, that's a jersey I wore on a show I did called Wipeout. But my website at markanthonydibello.com is color-coded with the colors of the rainbow. Tragically, the alphabet community, if you want to call them that, LGBTQXYZ, hijacked the rainbow and used it for their color scheme, which is just counterfeit and satanic and ungodly, and that's just the way Satan works. I actually also have an idea for a team in mind, and you can see it up there, called the Archangels. They're supposed to be in Los Angeles, where now the San Diego team is, and I still call them the San Diego Chargers. Then I wanted to get them to Orlando, and I just met, I don't want to get into more my work life, but I just met with the man who I've known for on and off for a few years through, seeing him up at Saratoga Racecourse, who's now, a partner in the UFL, which is the Spring Football League, also along with, a famous actor who also, like myself, graduated from the University of Miami. But having said that, this life update is concerns my blessed daddy and his and my search for justice. As I said before, some of his final words to me were Marcus, or Aurelius, he would call me. He'd say, Aurelius, Stretch. Well, my mom called me Stretch. My daddy called me Aurelius or Marcus, Aurelius or Marcus. He said, son, tell my story and don't let her get away with it. Because the story, and again, I'll give the updates again. My dad lost his first wife, his his true wife, his original wife, my mom, Dorothy, October 17th, 1982. Now, again, I always tell the truth, especially on video. Now, I might make a mistake. I try not to give opinion and call it truth, but I might make some mistakes because, in my years, I've kind of lived two lifetimes, and sometimes I get dates wrong. I'm a little bit geographically challenged, but I always try to make certain, I speak the truth and then correct myself if I don't. So I've given some dates in the past here regarding the life of my dad. I might have been, either inaccurate about or just a little, couldn't give a more specific date. So having said that, and you'll see why I'm mentioning that. Again, my dad was born this day, 11/28, November 28th, 1932, and then on October 17th, 1982, my mom died of pancreatic cancer. And I remember, how, we were all attacked. My dad certainly being the father of our family, than me more than anybody else, because my dad and I are the most godly, and if you're very godly, you're going to be attacked. If you're not serving God, the devil already has you. He's not going to bother you. He's going to let you do what you do. And tragically, all the other children of my father and mother had, the 7 others, they've all progressively gotten more and more evil, including a lot of their family, their children, I only have 2 aunts left now from both families, both my mother and father's side. My mom had 13 or so on her side, and there's only 2 there left, and I'm going to mention one of them at the end of this message, and then, or at least some point during it. And then my poppy, my dad, they called him Poppy, I called him Popsicle. He had, 6, and I loved them all, even the ones that are deceased, and my aunts and, my mom's side, my aunts and uncles, and certainly all the, the other 5, along with my daddy on his side. And I just did a lot of research on my, Uncle Mark John, for whom I'm named, and what an athlete he was, and his work career and his likes. I just saw his yearbook in high school in Mechanicville High, and the same with my daddy and my mom. I think graduated Columbia in 1958. I want to say, no, that doesn't sound right. 53, I think, 53. And I saw some things about her, and actually my godmother, Carolyn, Burek, Carrie, she later married. But I called her Aunt Chirpy. They all called her Aunt Chirpy, but I loved my Aunt Chirpy. She was, kind of eccentric and out there, but, was good to my mom. And so anyways, having said that, again, because this isn't about my life, you can find all my information on any of my, my personal website or my social media, but this is about, the search for justice. Again, the saying I have now is no justice, no peace. Because my dad was a victim, because after my mom died, Satan sent a woman who began deceiving and thieving and, using and abusing my father right from the start. And I mentioned how, he's said that to me, and I have. Again, I'll put my hand on a Bible in a court of law. I'll put my, I'll go on a lie detector. I'm not going to lie on video. I'm not going to lie when it, in front of my God, and especially when it comes to speaking about my mom and dad and the life of my mom and dad, because to me, again, God is love, life, joy, and peace. And there is nothing in my life more important than the life of my dad and my mom before him. And I'm really just kind of walking in the dark through the rest of my life here because of this loss and the victimization, not only that happened to him, crucified as he was in a way, and I'll get to that again here, but the lies and the false accusations, the false arrests, the jailing, the thievery, the betrayal, the rejection, the disrespect, the satanic list of the things that this person did to my father and me and her supporters. My father's own children, and even family members, and even friends of mine, people I thought were friends. Oh God, it's unbelievable. But anyway, so again, to repeat the story briefly, this woman came up, wanted to find out who the wealthy widower, she called him, was. 21 years younger, unattractive. Apparently now, and this is a kind of a correction I've had to get, because I never got really the same story twice from people. But this person, when she met my dad, she was married, apparently, or she was divorced. But she wanted to use my dad's office to have a quote unquote Bible study, calling herself a Christian. But this is the least Christian human being I've ever met. She's the most evil human being I've ever met. Period, bar none. It's not even close. There's a gentleman, actually my father's second born son, Joseph, whose second born child and son, he's the second most evil person I've ever met. This, I mean, he's got, when he's good, he's 10% of the time he's good. He's a good, he's a good guy. He's done good things. He works hard. He's got some talent. Now his main, claim to fame, if you will, is his wealth. And he has a good, he was athletic, just like my mom. He's in the Burek, gene line, genetic line. I'm exactly, cut from the same cloth, or, as my daddy, more in the Italian rather than the Polish line. But anyway, having said that, this person, this female, and I knew it when I first saw her. I said, Dad, and it wasn't even the age difference. I'm like, Dad, what do you think she's doing with you? Can't you sense the spirit in her? I mean, she's black. She's just about money, and you heard me open my prayer. The devil he's a hater, he's a thief, he's a liar, he's a destroyer. I said, Dad, you're going to lose your life because of this woman. And sure enough, when he first met her, she immediately started the process of, and I can relay this because a lot of financial things have come to light since the message I left a couple months ago, but started thieving, misappropriating funds. In one case, according to my dad, he alleges she embezzled, gaslighting and grooming him, controlling, manipulating, coercing him, as in a cult, which is called Prospecticide. You can go on my website and click on POP. It's a Prospecticide of Popsicle. It's a charity, a foundation. My whole DiBello production company, God bless, named after my mom, my dad, and my mom, is a 501c3 nonprofit. So I do everything for the love of God and to honor my father and mother, first and foremost. Those are the top two things. Because I have a saying, you might have heard me say it before, I have many sayings, but the one primary one is probably this: only God has the keys to the kingdom. Father God, he's the only one you're going to end up with, either with him or apart from him. He's got the decision power. He's got the keys to the kingdom. If not for God, and here's another saying, if not for God, then what for? I mean, what's the point of any of this? I mean, all our lives are gone in 120 years or less. I mean, but eternity is obviously forever. And I want to be with God, the Heavenly Holy Father. I don't want to be in hell with Satan. And I pray to God, my mom and dad are up there. I pray with even my Uncle Joe and our little boy Golden Nugget, our little Doogie, and all the horsies and all the beautiful critters and some of the people I've known in my life. But I don't want to get all preachy, but trust me, maybe 1 in a billion, I mean, whatever the number is, God knows, but 1 in a billion people maybe go to heaven. It's exclusive. It's heaven. It's not, everybody loves, they're all wrong about what they think anyway. People talking, you can talk to people in heaven, that, everybody's there. Sure, all the sinners would love to think that. But the point is, getting back to my daddy, I have to honor him. It's a commandment. In this video, I've got some big work projects coming up. Just even posting this video has probably cost me opportunities. I know it has in the past. Everything, again, even associated with this beast, this one, my father, he typically always called her a pig, whore, bitch. Those three terms describe her pretty well. And we always talked about how evil she was and how people could just be so deceived. His own children. My father was so disappointed with his children. And I understand, everybody but me, and I understand why. They are disappointing. They are so either ignorant or just evil or deceived or just selfish or just unwise or ungodly or serving the god of money or their own children or whatever the case may be, or their own lives. They don't have money. They don't have a life. They don't have a child. They don't have any relations if it wasn't for my daddy, these 7 other children. But again, her and her family, I knew they were evil. So having said that, I was first told that this woman was divorced when she met my dad, which is a sin in itself. You're not supposed to be with another divorce. If you're a widower, you're not supposed to. This is at least a biblical Christian teaching, which of course she disobeyed all the time. She was listening to this Joyce Meyer, with the $25,000 gold toilet, when she got with my father. And I'm like, the Bible clearly says, the Apostle Paul says, women are not supposed to preach. That's all there is to it. You break that rule, you're willing to break any. But having said that, I'm like, and the scripture says, you're not supposed to marry a divorced woman. I've been honoring that my whole life, just trying to find a wife and a mate. Because the principle is quite simple. If she's willing to divorce her first husband, she's willing to divorce you. Now, of course, they have some disclaimers in the Bible about if you're being abused or your life is in danger, and I understand that, but I'll talk about that maybe another time. But the point is, my father had given me, and I thought the date, I knew when she met him was probably a couple of years after my mom died, somewhere around 84, 85. And immediately, like I said, gained access to his office, immediately just started making money. Joey, my father's son and, other second son of three, endorsed her, and she started working and as his secretary, my dad's secretary, and just immediately everything is about money. That's the only I knew, and she was all about power and control. And I told the story a few months, after, I'm sorry, just backtrack a second. So after they were together for, I don't know, I guess it was a couple of years, because I can't find any marriage certificate anywhere. I mean, again, she was really, my father knew it, she was really sinister at hiding records and doctoring documents and, to her benefit financially and to cover up things, according to my dad, which I can see it's been done. But I know it was August something. I want to say 14th, 16th, somewhere, maybe 18th, somewhere in August. But according to what I saw on the internet, which again, I can find most anything, in this case is very hard to find. Somewhere probably, it said maybe 88, 87, 88, somewhere like that. So what finally came to light to me was, and I'll tell the story real quick again, when I went up to my father's house once, she had been with him, I guess officially now his wife, which I won't even acknowledge. I mean, my dad, he finally agreed, almost to his deathbed, what, Mark, she was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. And I go, Dad, I love you, but I told you that from the start. I mean, what did you think? Don't you know how Satan works? What did you think was going to happen? But he, again, you just get deceived. And my father, anyway, so I'll get to the end of the story, but because I want to get the updates in and keep it within 1 hour. So having said that, I went up to his house to borrow a truck. He said, sure, son, take the keys. They're right there on the kitchen table. She's standing right next to me. I take the truck. I call him up the next morning. I say, Dad, I'll be back, in the morning. He said, sure, no problem. Next thing you know, the cops are there waiting for me. She had either eavesdropped, which she had a propensity to do, she had a habit of doing, or he told her, or she just found out. But, the odds of the cops seeing me, being there when I was driving this truck back, are it's a long shot. But they were waiting for me. Now, why were they waiting for me? They arrested me because she reported that I stole the truck. Do you believe that? What a liar. What an evil, ungodly lie. Again, just wanted to exert power and control. And as she said, after I got out of jail 6 days later, because I didn't steal a truck, it was one of my dad's trucks. The mistake he made was apparently it was her husband's truck, which I don't know how she got it, maybe in the divorce or something. And I never saw the truck before, but I told this story countless times. Nonetheless, she said, and I quote again, I'm paraphrasing, I won't quote, effing, I do it again, and she uses the word, you and your effing father need to know I'm the boss. I'm going to own all this one day. I'm in control. I can't effing let you and him get away with anything, and I'll effing do it again, meaning have you falsely arrested again. I'm like, you got to be kidding. And of course, I, being a good Christian at that time, turned the other cheek, took one for the team, so to speak, didn't want to break my poor daddy's heart. Say, Dad, this person you've been with, she's a sinister, lying snake. I mean, Dad, she's willing to do that just to make sure somebody can't, have your back, protect you, somebody, that she can get to the money without a hurdle or a barrier. I mean, Pop, who does that out of evil and spite and female self-empowerment, whatever it is? I mean, control, coercion, manipulation. My God. And she even threw my daddy under the bus, saying that same thing. I'll do it to your father too if it's necessary. And sure enough, years would go by. My father, and I have the video up there now, Bingo City, he had to take an arrest for something she did, either through ignorance or through theft or a combination of both. But my father said, Mark, and this, giving this update, what I found out was because, not only would I post it on Bingo City, which I knew, that's why I didn't get involved in it, but you can see the video on my YouTube page. But my dad, in the last couple of years of his life, kept telling me, Mark, she stole $1 million of mine. She's got my $1 million. And my dad was a millionaire. And I recently told this to an aunt who said, no, Mark, there's no way. And I knew my aunt, I didn't know she was going to betray me, but she never really, she had problems with my father. She didn't like his style, which I knew she didn't. They're more Polish and normal, if you will. My dad's, to his credit, is, an entrepreneur, a raconteur, an innovator, and a revolutionary, a Renaissance man, just like I'm blessed to be, and proud to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, these are the I don't want to, but my dad did always say be humble. But the point is, they had the Polish side of the family, some kind of opposites, but that's what my mom loved about my dad and me. So having said that, I did some background because I knew what my dad had told me, and I knew she was taking money everywhere she could get it, and didn't care, about my father, deep down inside his heart. Because here's the synopsis of this story, and I'll finish up with that update. Because, well, let me give the money thing, and then I'll give the synopsis and the arrest, another arrest. So my dad had his property, his beautiful home. It was valued at one point higher than $650,000, but around that ballpark. So she forced him to sell. It ran, she went through all that money. He had to divide the house up, had everybody kicked out, had to rent the rooms out. She went through that money. He sold 3 properties. They were, she wanted to sell a 4th. The local town wouldn't, adjudicate it, whatever that's called. But the first one I think sold for about $40,000. And this is the public record because it's listed in the newspaper, the local newspaper, the Times-Union. So I looked it up myself, which I might have done before, but I remember my dad telling the first one he sold for $35,000 or $40,000, which the purchaser got a really good deal on because it was worth more than that. But my dad was desperate because, again, she was going through all his money. But not only going through his money, and I'm going to say this, after I tell you these other properties, another one was sold for $233,000 or $250,000, and then another one I think for $90,000. Okay, and then eventually his house for $650,000. So that is about $1 million. Now, what happened was every time, my father profited some because after he met her, all his businesses went bankrupt. Joey was running them, and Joey, he had his own agenda, doesn't believe in God. He's not going to be blessed. I mean, he's money hungry too, prideful, jealous, just, kind of a bully. But having said that, her and him are in the same, they're in the same boat, so to speak. But Hospital News, bankrupt. Greenbush Area News, DiBello Publishing Company, Hospital Recruiters, backyard. All my father's businesses gone, bankrupt or broke. Okay. Now, every time my father got money, including from the sale of his 4, his house and 3 houses, properties of land, he gave the money to her. And what she did was, instead of, letting my dad know honestly how much was in the bank, so to speak, she would pocket some to the side for when he died. It was her money. She considered it hers. Okay. Now remember, she's got a job with my father, working in his company, his public company, until that went bankrupt. She was out taking on other things that she could do to make money so she didn't have to take care of my dad. And like my father said, she was sick with greed, Mark. Sick with greed. And so when the money would come in, that's what she would do. And then she would, I'll give you like an analytical breakdown. 100% comes in. Okay, let's say, that $100,000 for that one property, or 90,000. She'll pocket maybe 50% of that. She'll spend 40% of that and tell my dad there's only 10% of that left in the bank that they need to survive. So they're right there, and they're doing that math. There's of $1 million in properties sold, there's 500,000. She's, like my dad said, saw the documentation. She's secreted away. She's investing on him dying. She's more concerned about how she's going to live her elegant lifestyle that only my dad afforded her. Because again, he told me, Mark, she makes money on insurance policies. She makes money on Social Security. She makes money on, his Bingo City, any of the businesses he had. And he told me, he said, Mark, biggest mistake I made beside marrying her, I trusted her with the money. So she's investing on him being dead. And that's where the money's going. Or she's spending it living, a lifestyle that she wouldn't even let him live. I mean, he couldn't get, like I said before, he couldn't get the brand of root beer he liked. She would always have to get penny pinch and get the generic. But for her, first top of the line, everything she could get. And then she'd misrepresent, say, okay, well, now we only have this much money, so we can't stay in the house. We got to sell the house. We're going to have to rent in the city, East Green, but she wanted to rent in. Then eventually moved to Schenectady, bought that house, I guess 160 or 180, 90, I think it was valued at. Like my father said, in the name of her and this Carrie Utstein or something, I guess this Christian woman's daughter married a Jewish man. I don't know those people. I try not to, I never said one word to any of her children. I just knew they were evil. And so my father's right. Put it in her and this daughter's name. My father had no claim to it. And it was bought with, this person, where else would she make $190,000 for a house paid in full? That's my daddy's money. That was all my dad's money. And the Social Security she probably, I think, still gets, according to my dad, she got because of her years of employment with my father and his publicly held company. All this my dad had told me. And then my aunt says, no, Mark, she doesn't have that. She was just a good wife. Really? He started with nothing with Dorothy, built up a fortune. Dorothy dies. He gets with this one. He loses everything, has no home, is veritably homeless, is broke, no car, no businesses, nothing. And this person's bank account goes up like this. She's alive and he's dead on Easter Sunday, 2025, March 31st, under suspicious circumstances, suddenly, what he didn't have to die from. And you look, and I've said this before about the death certificate. You look at the death certificate, and it says, whatever the first thing was, hypoxic respiratory failure, then caused by sepsis, caused by pneumonia, or pneumonia first, then sepsis. I don't remember. So hypoxic, then either pneumonia or sepsis and pneumonia, and then Alzheimer's on the bottom. She was always pushing that Alzheimer's narrative. And you know what? After more study, I found out, of course I knew he never had Alzheimer's. He was so happy he didn't. But that was just something she kept browbeating about and reinforcing him so she could justify how she was his caregiver and making money, is that Alzheimer has no relation to hypoxic respiratory failure, sepsis, or pneumonia. None. But why would you put that on the death certificate? You don't need to put Alzheimer's on the death certificate. Because she, again, at the time my father was called, the emergency, and I've got to still find this out because, of course, it's New York, woke, blue, Democrat, female, just the same thing President Trump went through. You can't get a straight answer or a truthful one or any answer at all. The circumstances behind how he died, how he was rushed to the hospital in the ambulance and died from something within 24 hours that most people do not have to die from, regardless of age. Of course, older people have less of a chance of success, but this is why I paralleled this story before. He could have been in pain for a week before she came around to take him to the hospital or call the ambulance, because she didn't take him. He had to call, an ambulance had to be called. But she had a history of doing that. I told you the story where his house, the fire alarm went off in her house where he had to beg to stay, couldn't get a key, didn't have a car, had to just bow down to her, where she was always using and abusing and threatening him. If you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm sending you to a nursing home, which she was never going to do. If you don't do what I tell you to do, I'll send you to a mental institution, which she might have done. But like my dad said, he goes, Mark, he said, no, don't say go. He says, whenever he became more valuable to her dead than alive, she would do him in. And he was constantly fearing for his life and constantly reporting to me through 700 plus messages that I've yet to play and 700 that I have about the incidences of abuse and what was going on.
Listen to me. It is imperative that you get a hold of me. She's dangling that she quite likely will kill me tonight, and if she won't, she certainly threatened me enough. And she wields that knife. She's gonna kill me. You gotta get me out of here. So I'm gonna leave you this number. I'm gonna go. I don't know where I'm gonna hide out here, but call me. These rooms are so close. I have to be nearer. So I'm gonna ask you to call me. I can't do this anymore. I don't know where to try to sleep, but I don't know. I don't know how to place any more urgent. She's got everybody terrified. Nobody will talk to me. I need some help getting things out of here. Slot machine, jukebox, and things from downstairs. Oh my God. Let me see if this is anybody who's trying to help me. She's gonna get everything here, and I'm really close to ending. I just need some help. I gotta get out of here. Please call me. I gotta get a lawyer. I gotta get away from her. It's amazing what she's stealing from me. I can't do this alone. Please call me. We'll bury her together. She's evil. She's the devil himself. Bye.
That's absolutely it. She's stepping on me and stomping on me. She's trying to bury me here.
Yeah, beat up. Do you understand? Oh, God. Of course I don't look good. She's killing me. I'm dying faster than I ought to die. I could have squeezed out a little bit more life. Nobody wants to help. I won't let her in here. I don't trust her. She killed her husband. She's going to be up against it. There's a murder. I'll explain it all to you. I think I can explain it all. I'm so weary now. It's 3 o'clock. I haven't slept but 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's not anything. Call me as soon as you get this, no matter what time. She's going to go to jail. 280-1014, and the cell is 477-3085.
So having said that, I'm still trying to get some answers, but I did get those financial answers. And my father would make other money, but of course she would get it if he won at the horses or I sent him money or he won at the racetrack. And then this Joseph, who's a multi-millionaire, she was always hitting him up for money, and not using it to support my dad or help him, but pocketing it and then, using it to keep me away from my father. Because at the time of his death, do you believe this responsible man who was a CEO of a publicly held company and lived his life the right way, apparently died with no life insurance and apparently didn't leave a will, or at least I wasn't included in the will? Really? It's a public document. I still can't find any information on it. It's a public document. Strangers can read this will before I can. Can't find anything on it. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because another set of analytical or data that came to my attention was because I knew about the money and I knew her MO, if you will. She did it with Bingo City. She did it with everything. Put the money, there was her money, and then there was the way she spent it, because you can even hear a message that I included about her saying, I need your last Social Security bank account. And my father's like, she's like, you're so, and she uses the word, Lord's name in vain. You're so GD cheap, you don't contribute for anything. The man's 89 years old. She got everything from him. But that dirty heart, that black, evil heart, out of the mouth comes what's in her heart. You don't disrespect and talk to a man like that unless you've been using and abusing and ripping him off for decades. What are you in? Whoever could listen to that and not think otherwise. And my father was livid. He knew what was going on. He's like, Mark, she's not only turned the abuse into mental, emotional, and now physical, or the financial to, mental, emotional, and physical. I mean, she won't stop. She won't stop until she has every last dime. And he said, he goes, Mark, I'll die. She'll kill me, because he was fearful for his life, and she'll be reaching in my pocket for a nickel before she calls the police, or or the coroner, or the medical examiner, anybody. And that's what she did. And I told this story before, how my pop even went to the police chief in East Greenbush, New York, begging for protection, because not only did he have evidence she did this to her first husband, and I'll get to this point, and that's how, she profited from life insurance from him, but that she was doing it to my dad. And instead of doing something, investigating this matter, at the behest of Joseph DiBello, who apparently needed a favor for this woman, Elaine, and her husband, Edward, another bully of a guy, a cop, former cop, who had put gun to my head on this arrest. Apparently, this person with my father, she was working all these people, including the public defender, who was a lawyer friend of hers, apparently, and who writes an obituary, which I put last week. How's that not a conflict of interest? Doesn't that stink to high heaven, my dad would say, my popsicle? I mean, what lawyer writes an obituary for somebody? Crooked, all of them. Corrupt, crooked, or incompetent. Every one of them. And here's the synopsis. And I'll get to this other analytical thing. This woman, this person with my father, and you can look her up, find her name online. I don't want to say it because it makes me sick to my stomach. I mean, I still have nightmares. I never talked to the woman. I spoke with her. I'm sorry. I've seen her 5 times in 10 years. Every one of them has been a negative. I've never touched her, shook her hand, touched her by accident. Nothing. I avoid her like, they say the plague. I know she's evil. You don't go near a demonic, possessed, evil human being like that. But the point is, this person and then later took out this false protection order, again, which abusers do to isolate their victims, okay? And my dad, like I said, he was a victim, and so was I. She would rather, quite simply, keep a father and his firstborn son who loves and adores each other. She would rather not tell either of them, lie on a protection order, go behind their back, do whatever she could so she could profit till the day he died, rather than him and his son be together in peace and love and joy, and saving my daddy's life like he begged me to do. I will lie, cheat, steal. I will do whatever I can to make sure that no money leaves her possession. I don't care who it hurts. I don't care if my father cries, my daddy cries. If I'm in pain, she didn't care. And her supporters believed her and justified that. Oh, she takes good care of him. Really? For $1 million? Jeez. And here I am spending money to take care of my dad. Not just doing it for free. I just gave him my money. I gave him 3 life savings trying to save him. And this Joseph, Mr. Big Shot, I'll just send a check. I don't know what my father begged my father begged him. And then, of course, here's my poor daddy, rushed to the hospital. She's profiting the whole way. I didn't know, really. And here's the thing, and this was when he sold his house for $600,000. And I helped him get a second mortgage by putting him on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You know how much I got? I got $1,000. And I had to use it to hire a mover to get my stuff off the property because I knew she would confiscate it all, which she did. She took some of it. I had to pay the only 22 or whatever years I lived at that house with my daddy, on and off, through college, 21 years. All the chores, all the mowing of the lawns, all the work, building the thing literally on a rock pile when I was, 6 years old, whenever he bought the house. And I got $1,000. She banked all but maybe 10,000 of it. Because I'm guessing maybe my father gave 1,000 to his 7 other children too. Really? And she had such control, threatening him. So he loses all of that. And these supporters of hers say, Oh, she was good for him. She took good care of him. Yeah, she took care of him. She made sure he died homeless, broke, alone, afraid, with no one around him but her, and all the secrets that she goes buries along with it. You know what I got? You probably, you hear me share this story. I was threatened with arrest if I went to the funeral, to the burial, and everybody supported that. I don't know who attended this funeral. I wonder, did anybody stay? Where's Mark? We've been his friend for 30, 40 years. At least I thought they were my friends. Oh, we worked with Mark. We know Mark. Where's Mark? Why is Mark not here? Nope, cop at the funeral. Lying funeral director and a cop who says, I'm doing you a favor. You're doing me a favor? By not arresting me at my father's funeral, you're doing me a favor, you hypocrite, ignorant, evil cop. Like I've said, you've heard me say this before, 99% of them. So what I get after my father died? 3 pieces of paper. Photocopies, Xeroxes, if you will, of pictures I already had. That's my dad lived 91 years, so I could get that. Not that I wanted, it would have been nice for material possession. I knew he didn't have any money, probably. She was going to go through all that, selling life insurance, making more life insurance. She has her own private personal post office box. My father's like, why she got that? We'd live together. She doesn't need that. My father knew. So having said that, here's a couple more updates, because I could go on, about this. I got to see how much time. I guess I got 20 more minutes, but I'll try to rush through this, or at least get through it. So I gave you the number about, the money. And again, I sent money, and she could have gotten 50, 100 grand from Joseph. He's like 5,000 to him is like a nickel to most people. But again, his love of money, he's the second greediest person when it comes to his love of money, because he's an atheist, doesn't believe in God. When you don't believe in God, you believe in money and everything else, including yourself. Not in a positive way, but like your God. But having said that, and he could have been he was such a good guy for a point, but no more. And his followers, the other siblings, no, let Father and Mark ostracize, isolate them. And even, like I said, this aunt betrayed me. This aunt said to me, Mark, I'd go to court and stand up for her and see you go to jail. She said, oh, you know what, Mark? She was a good, dutiful wife. She doesn't have $1 million. Really? Mark, I think you're a liar. Okay. Mark, you landed up in jail the last 3 times in 30 years since I gave up drinking and drugs, which is the truth. I've only been in jail 3 times since then. All the times because of her. Falsely accused, falsely arrested. And this person says, no, Mark, you got yourself in jail. You deserved it. Wow, right to the end. And over 100 years old, you'd think that, well, again, everybody betrayed my dad and me. They betrayed his wife, my mom, Dorothy, whether they know it or not. They've crippled us for life, in a sense. My mom, dad rolling in their graves, so to speak. Me, I can never be the same again. I can't. It's impossible. It's like being an amputee. You don't get that leg back. You know what I mean? You could put a metal one on there, but you're still crippled. The nightmares, the pain. But having said that, so here's a couple more updates for what it's worth. So, again, if you listen to these messages, I could find nothing on a guy named Joseph Murphy, who ran a company, or at least was a vice president, or worked in a family business called Murphy Overhead Doors. And I finally found a police officer. I told you, like I said, 1 out of 100 is good. I probably had to speak to 100, and I'm sure she's delighting in that. But I found one who gave me the information on this Joseph John Murphy. Now, I got to look into it more, but apparently he died in 1990. And my dad tells a story of how he died. He said it wasn't an accident. Now, I've got to corroborate that. I've got to find that out, of how this guy died. But I have the exact date, and I have his date of birth, too. I think he was born in 58, I think. Whatever it was, I don't have the information in front of me. So I've got his date of birth, and he died, I guess, if I remember, this guy said March 1990, this officer, who was helpful, who actually was, and I found him in Florida, because I knew you're not going to find that answer in New York. So this officer did a good job. God bless him. He did his job and then some. So I'm hoping to get more information that I need, but I'll get it because again, I want to corroborate everything my dad said. Knowledge is power. I don't want to speak or do something without knowing the truth. I need to know from myself. Like I said, I know the way she treated my dad about the knife throwing, the threats, because I have those 6 conversations I heard. And I have all the messages from my dad, and I know the facts. You don't, you could, this person should be like my dad wanted to see her in jail for, what you'd call circumstantial evidence. I mean, I told the story, again, how he died and how, he had a fire or thought the fire was going off in the house, the alarm, and she was nowhere to be found. He could have burned to death because, the monitor wasn't properly maintained. He couldn't get to the police, the fire department, the police. I had to help him do that. He could have perished in a fire. She was out, like my dad said, either with one of her men vacationing, out with her evil sister, who my father thought was the second most evil person he'd ever met, and and spending his money and neglecting him like she did. Just read the report I put up there. So, again, I'm going to find out, and that's why my life is in danger. That's why her and her supporters want to see me dead. I mean, because she doesn't want to be in jail. I was compassionate and caring. I said, Dad, we don't need to put her in jail. Let's just leave her. But she couldn't divorce because she's got to keep that last name because it was all her identity. It's all she did in her life was use and abuse, weasel in her life with my dad. Forfeited his. I said, Dad, you give her your last name, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, and he did. He lost his life because of it, and of course, all the insurance, the life, the money, the life insurance, all the, the working away around in East Greenbush, New York, then Schenectady, New York. All, I'm like, Dad, and my father could never believe. He says, Mark, how could they have a protection order between a father and a son? And I had Dad to explain. I said, Dad, if the son is like a killer and it's an evil guy, then maybe the father's like, a priest or a cop or the Pope or, a famous politician or something, or, a successful celebrity or athlete, and the son's a criminal, then you can probably see it happening. But my father and I knew that wasn't him and me. He knows it's not me. Certainly not with him. Nah, but that evil Judge Elizabeth Walsh, golly, I knew she was evil as soon as I got that corrupt message from her. And then and again, all of them, the Attorney General, that Letitia James, and this Kathy Hochul, and this Ruth Tompkins or whatever her name is. This again, the public defender who's also good buddies with this Donna. Unbelievable. And I knew I was going to have to go through it, but I'm not going through it anymore. So having said that, I've got the information on the husband. So the reason I'm mentioning that is, I guess I have to remember correctly. I think if I did the math, this husband died, I think he was only 37 or something. If he died in 1990, this person's first husband. So if she was with my father in 88, then they were divorced or separated or something. They weren't together because she, I guess she had to legally be, but she could, I don't want, who knows? She always bragged to my father how she knew how to weasel paperwork or finagle it. But she must have divorced this man again, like I had first thought. But then again, according to my dad, which could still be true, and I have to investigate. My dad, he's like, Mark, she, he alleges she killed his husband for money. He had a shooting accident. He wasn't alone. He was with her. So I do know how my dad, because he was getting older, and he never had Alzheimer's or dementia, and he was never senile or insane. He was none of that. But he had so much, my dad, living to be 91, lived the life of a 182-year-old. And again, he's recalling, events and things in, minute details from 70 years earlier to me, okay? So, and the way he, when you're beaten up like that, when your mind is, cultishly controlled like that, you're brainwashed, and it's the truth. It's not untrue. It's not something I made up. But people would rather believe her, fall for, become, maybe they're brainwashed themselves. I think they're just so, again, they just hate me so much. They hate God. They hate the truth. They hate righteousness. They hate, all the things that I stand for. At least certainly regarding them and my mom and dad, that they would rather just, what? And they all love money. Every one of them's profited because of me, too. They've all used me to profit and falsely accused me I was going to cost them all their money. Joseph in his business. Really? Your business grew 10 times, so did your horse racing business. What do you think I've been doing for, 30 years, working behind the scenes? You wouldn't know that. Lisa, this evil, evil Lisa. Oh, you're going to screw me up in my court. I got a big court proceeding. You're going to screw me up. Really? Because why? Because I got you on TV. You won a $20,000 car and did something, according to the law, the books in Rhode Island, criminal with the charity that you formed using the car that I gave you. And I'm going to cost you in court? Really? You made $350,000 or something? My father disdained that. He's like, he goes, Mark, she's just as evil as Joey when it comes to when they made money. And Donna first, Joey second, Lisa third. Like, Mark, they'll do anything for money. And then I guess Amy, Susan married into money, I guess. Julie lives in her bubble. Tony, my father, alcoholic and just not very smart. Amy, just a boss type, bully, manager, always type, just like this other person. My father just, he knew. And I said, he knew and I knew. He's like, Mark, he was so disappointed, really hurt, rejected, disrespected by his own children. Just tragic. They all put him on that cross, and when he died on Easter morning. So anyway, having said that, speaking of them, I finally, if anybody knows Joseph DiBello, tell him to read his email, because you know what? I did everything to be a good, godly man, okay? Honor my mother and father, and try to be a brother. But these people are nothing to me anymore, okay? They're estranged. None of them are apologetic. They're not even remotely civil, decent, respectful. None of them. I'm begging, I could be homeless and broke and ready to go to jail. Not a word of anything. Nothing. And that's okay. I don't want to talk to him anyway. I don't want to. We're sorry. Can we help? We're sorry what we did to your dad. We're sorry what happened to your dad. None of it. You know what? We just got our money. We're glad he's gone. We're going to do whatever we do. Well, you know what? There's consequences for every one of you, and every person who didn't, Jesus even himself said, those who aren't for me are against me. And you know what? And there's a scripture also that says, evil flourishes when good men do nothing. And you've got to choose a side. You're either, there's those that are for me or you're against me. And you're not for my dad, you're not for my mom, Dorothy, and you're obviously not for me. So, you know what? I'm giving you all your chances. You know what? You can all start dealing with courts of law, and you can all start dealing with civil lawsuits and everything, and whatever it is. Because I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going to die for you people. I'll die for my mom and dad. They knew that. I'll die for my God, but I'm not dying for you people. And and I don't want to make this message just about them or to them, but again, it's just, and I've got to wrap it up here, I guess. But just to give an update, so I'll keep finding out more information. What else I need to know? Again, the wheels of justice certainly are slow, especially in New York, and especially when an evil perpetrator is trying to cover up and hide things, and and it's a financial thing too. You know what I mean? Like, all these things cost money. You believe that? I mean, she gets the death certificate for free, and she's the one who did my father in, and I've got to pay $25 to get it. You talk about an evil world, the injustice of that, the insult, the indignity to my own daddy and me. You think my father wanted Mark to like be treated this way after he was gone? No, I don't want Mark at my funeral or burial. No, I don't want Mark to get even a single possession. No, I don't want Mark to be free from jail. I want Mark thrown in jail. I want Mark falsely accused. I want Mark lonely. I want Mark without, all that he's missing through all his conversations daily with my daddy for hours at a time. Mark see his daddy, we'll throw him in jail. Mark's money, nope, we're stealing that. I'm taking that. I'm spending all that on me. But I'm going to take Mark to court and tell him that Mark is endangering his father, which again, I'll just make that story clear. My father had to take a felony, his only one ever, for Bingo City, this business, because of her chicanery and what she did. Joseph is blaming the government, whether he turned a blind eye or is just, delusion, about it. But she's doing all this. She's the one who caused all this damage, all the financial problems. My father had to defend her. What's he going to do? He was being chivalrous. You know what? So he took the fall. And, so having said that, and Joseph is out there traipsing around like he knows what's going on. So I forgot the point that I was trying to make. But the point is, I forget the point. Well, anyway. So having said that, I guess what I'm saying is, to find out more of the information I need to find out. Because the hospital, the ambulance, I mean, again, it's certainly neglect. It's definitely abuse. There's no doubt abuse. And the governments in those cities might be responsible too. Whether it's criminally or civilly, I don't know. East Greenbush, Rensselaer County, New York State, APS, all the services, Schenectady County, the mayor's office, the mayor, everybody I tried to reach out to. How do you let that happen to a 91-year-old Korean War veteran, a man of goodness and godliness and generosity and charity? I mean, don't you people, what do you think? Nicole Brown Simpson, I liked OJ too. I don't like him killing people. What do you think? That was an accident. She got beaten to death, basically. And the guy, that Goldman kid was there, as her friend or had a whatever relationship with her, and he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe OJ was jealous, who knows, whatever. But God rest OJ's soul, God rest her soul, and even the Jewish guy, Goldman, whatever. But the point is, it's abuse. It's spousal abuse. What do you think happens? And the numbers bear it out. Go to my Popsicle page, POP. 50% now of the women with all this female empowerment and more money and more, all the other things and all this lesbian feminist culture. The abuse now goes both ways, but you don't hear about that. It's just, the guys and the wife beaters, T-shirts they call them, those muscle shirts, beating on women. And guys shouldn't do that, obviously, and I know guys did that and do that, and that's a sin and evil and a crime as well. But women, just as evil, whether it's just certainly the gold digger, subversive, sneaky, deceptive part, remembering that the devil first came to the woman, prostituting themselves in some way. Oh, I'll be nice to you, it's just going to cost you. Oh, I'll marry you, it's just going to cost you. Oh, I'll let you have sex with me as your wife after 10 years, but it's just going to cost you. Oh, I'll work with your company, but, you got to hire me as a secretary, but it's going to cost you. I'll take you for, a car ride, but it's going to cost you. Speaking of which, in closing, I guess, I'm going to wrap it up. I want to find the two audios. I don't know, again, I might just put one picture up here, I don't know. But the two audios, and I've told the story in remembrance of my daddy and his birthday. I did put one up there now where, which is, if you've studied cults and you've studied abuse like I have for 30 years, even before my dad got with this person, because I was just working in charity and God and churches about, shaving somebody's head, and allowing that to happen. So I put up a video on my Facebook and it's on my YouTube about a conversation my dad and I had where she was allowing his hair to be sheared off like a prisoner of war or a cult victim. And, and she was a proponent, she was just allowing that. But the other two recordings are, again, I've mentioned this before, on my dad's 89th birthday. I know I have this recording. He had me on the phone and she was neglecting, hurting him. He had to call the police. He was afraid. And the police had just arrived to the scene when he disconnected the phone. I could hear the officer speaking to my dad, but my dad was really frantic and upset. And again, he didn't like being abused, but he really also feared for his life. And all the while, she's out spending his money and just, mistreating him and being two-faced and covering it all up. And, always acting nice when she's in front of these other people. And I've seen it. I saw her. I watched my father and her at the racetrack. I went there to he wanted me to see him there, and I had to. I don't know what the circumstance was, but she was supposed to be keeping an eye on him. She's over on the concession stand talking on the phone for like an hour. My father's there begging for help on his walker. Strangers are helping him at one of his favorite places, the racetrack. I had to go help him. I said, Dad, because I was just like, I said, let me see how she treats him so I can be witness to it to myself. She made him take the bus to the racetrack. So having said that, that'll be the last two stories I tell in honor of my daddy's birthday. 89th, I guess it would be, because he died at 91. He didn't make it to his 92nd birthday. No, I'm doing the math wrong. So he's born November 28th, 1932. He died March 31st, 1925. No, 1924. So he didn't make it to his. So he didn't make it to November of 94, which means he didn't make it to 92. So he got to be 91. So his 90th birthday and his 91st birthday. His 90th birthday, instead of having a big celebration, and I might have misspoke about this before, and again, my numbers are a little off maybe, but either way, his last two birthdays. The second to last, I have that argument where she's, and I have a lot of conversations like that between him and her. He had told me about her, left a message, or a couple of them I did over here. This one, again, just happened to be on her birthday. She's out at the store or the restaurant buying food she wants, nothing for him, buying, spending his money, doing whatever, banking against his will, all this, then disregarding him, leaving him there, waiting for an hour for her to pick him up on the sidewalk, or a couple hours. And then she comes over and starts to grab the phone out of his hand, roughs him up. He had to call the police himself. I didn't even do it this time, even though I had to do it in the past to help him. So I've got that call. That's how he got to celebrate his second to last birthday. Not with a party, not a celebration, not with me, not with family. Nope, doing that. And we just had Thanksgiving, actually. He had to spend, I think, his last Thanksgiving with this guy he used to work with named Joe Gagan. She goes off with her family and sends to my father to somebody he knows maybe, once he sees once every couple of years, but he had to go with that family, like a third wheel sitting there. Why his own family? She couldn't arrange something? Yeah, she didn't care. And then his last birthday, and I'll never forget this because he told me the story and I knew it. No party, no nothing. Again, there's this protection order keeping me away from my dad on his 90th birthday or I'll be arrested. And she was always, actually I would go try to see my dad and there'd be police circling around. I don't know if she arranged that. She could have, who knows. But we were, he's like, Mark, it's my birthday. You got to come see me. So we would try to schedule a different day and such. And I told you last time I saw me cry like a baby, but I don't want to talk about that. I'll just lose it. But it was his 90th birthday. 90. Do you believe that? Korean War veteran, all the great things my daddy did in life, a good man, just the best father you could ever imagine. 90th birthday. She says to him, you got to go to the doctor's today. No, I'm not picking you up. She's either doing her babysitting or with another man or spending his money or some rich woman from Proctor's or her sister or her own family doing whatever. But no, I'm not picking you up. You need to take the bus to the doctor's. Either the handicap bus or the regular CDTA bus to the doctor's because you have an appointment for your legs to make sure you're still mobile and you can do your walker and all that, which he wasn't having a problem. And of course, she would threaten him, either if you don't, you're not going to be fed, or if you, don't do it the right way, you're going to be punished, or if you do it, I'll feed you. It's all manipulation. So he's getting all ready to do that, and he goes there, again, taking the public transportation, and gets there and was so infuriated. It wasn't an appointment for his legs like she had been telling him. It was another doctor that wanted to tell him he had Alzheimer's and make him take some kind of exam, do some kind of paperwork to tell him he's got Alzheimer's and he's demented, and that's why he needs her, and she's got to be in control of the money. And you know what? That's the whole narrative she's always been pushing. And that's how he was so upset. He goes, Mark, I can't believe. But then he said, like I've heard, Mark, I can't believe she would do anything. She would do anything evil. Lied to that man on his 90th birthday just to get him to go to a doctor so she could get some kind of documentation. Again, my father never had Alzheimer's, never had it, never lost his memory like that, was never demented, and never got progressively worse. Told me stories from 70 years earlier, just the last year of his life. I mean, he knew he was being brainwashed. He knew she was browbeating the hell out of him. And I was doing such good therapy with him to get him off of that. I'm like, Pop, I'm going to get you deprogrammed or unprogrammed, whatever the wording is. But anyway, well, I got to wrap it up. So on the remembrance of the birthday of my daddy, I could talk I could talk forever about my dad. At least I'm going to talk as long as I live, because I'm not going to just love him and my mommy till the day they died. I'm going to love him till the day I die. And I'm going to love him. And I'm going to honor them. And I'm going to serve the God of love, life, joy, and peace. And even if it's just me and the spirit of my mommy and daddy and the physical being that they left me, I'm going to get their justice and the truth. And you people are going to serve, you're going to serve your time the way you have imprisoned me. And I'll say it again because I say it to the spirits and people, every person, I don't care who it is, go to hell. Go to hell.